So I was 26 years old when I had my spiritually transformative experience or near death like experience. It was a 2 year long experience that lasted from age 26 to 28. It was a series of spiritual events. What happened was I had been really traumatized at age 13. I had been sexually assaulted, and I did a lot of healing. And I basically was told by therapists after going to a lot of therapy that I was okay. And then I decided that I wasn't okay, which was my spiritual side coming awake because I was functional, but I was still I still had nightmares. Um, and I remember saying at age 23 that I really want to heal all the way from this trauma that I'd had at 13. And so I started to do things to try to feel my heart. And I was learning like embodiment practices. I was doing um, energy work because I'd done a lot of talking, but I'd never actually been like cleared the energy of my trauma. And I was also writing my journal, Dear God. And so that's what started my spiritual experience. So I was writing Dear God in my journal from starting at age 23. And one night when I was 26, I was in New York in graduate school and I started to write Dear God, and I was writing about my life, kind of as just my heart on the page. And then I just suddenly wrote that I wanted to devote my life to God. I wrote, Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. This is my pledge. I will work hard to follow this path and bring it to fruition. Please help me do this. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen. And I was just crying as I wrote that, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. And that's when that night for the next 2 years is when my spiritual experience started. So that night, I didn't plan to write that. I do refer to myself as the accidental mystic. I was in graduate school at Teachers College, Columbia University, when I wrote that in my journal. Um, and, the word God can be very big for people, but really it was just me and my heart on the page. And so I wrote this big promise. I finished my entry talking about my boyfriend, that I was living in Brooklyn, and that night, and then I went to bed. But before I fell asleep, I saw a light come over my bed, and it was a beautiful white light that could see into my heart and my soul, and it felt very loving. And I remember seeing that light. It came from one end of the room to right over my bed, and it really scared me to be seen so fully because I had been doing so much healing, but I still felt like this light was seeing even to a deeper level of my soul. And I tensed up and I said, Go away, I'm afraid, go away, I'm afraid. Because I was like, whoa, this light's seeing into my heart. And as I told it to go away, I felt tingling come to the top of my head, and it felt like love and peace, but it got stronger and stronger. So, this feeling was just like in my head, and I was like, what a weird headache. This is the weirdest headache I've ever had. I had a boyfriend who was asleep next to me, and I thought I should wake him up. Is he having this headache? It's so weird. But it was so strong and it was so loving, and it kept getting stronger and stronger. And then I relaxed into this feeling, and I felt a voice come into my head that said, You don't have to be afraid, but if you are, you can wear a hat. And it put a graduation hat into my mind's eye. And at the time, I was 26, and I just said right back to the voice, That's not a cute hat. Here's three other hats. And I was like, three other hats I just said, right, put right back into the voice because I didn't know I was having a spiritual experience. It was like as if someone on the street said, Do you want, here, you can have this hat. And I was like, No, that's not cute. So once that I talked back to it, the voice stopped. And then I just fell asleep, and I woke up the next morning thinking that was really weird. I don't know what that was about. And I start going to school, to class. I was a graduate student the whole time. And I see beautiful white light pouring out of everyone I passed. And I thought everyone was an amazing angel. And I had never noticed that before. I just kept seeing people and being like, whoa, what? Whoa, this person is so beautiful. It wasn't just light that I was seeing, it was like their souls and all the love that they were. And I was just seeing all this love, and it made me love everyone. Um, and that has kind of stuck with me, but it really was very strong for the first few days of my experience. And then I also, that first couple weeks, I started having psychic or precognitive dreams. So these were dreams that were coming true. And, I'd been raised, my dad's a doctor. He's a physician with a PhD in biochemistry, and my mom's a psychologist. So I wasn't raised to think that anything about dreams could come true, but they started. I would have a dream like about a car accident, and then the car accident would happen. I had a dream about getting carbon monoxide poisoning and then surviving it. And I would have these dreams like a few days before these different events unfolded. And those have lasted ever since. Um, and that was the first few weeks, and then I thought, "I'm going crazy. I'm definitely losing my mind." I was just trying to keep going to school, and a bunch of other stuff happened, but around this time, I remember calling my boyfriend at the apartment to see if he could see the different things in the apartment, because I had seen a light. I was kind of starting to feel angels, which I'll talk about, but I remember calling him and asking him if he could see all these different things in the apartment, like, "Can you see this thing on the window? Can you see like XYZ?" And he said, "Yes, I can see that. Yes, I can see that." Um, Also, I had a stepdad during this time in my life. So my dad was Jewish, my mom was Christian, and my mom remarried an indigenous man who came from a medicine tradition. So even though he didn't talk about it a lot, he started having dreams about me during this experience. So he had a dream that I was becoming an angel of God on the earth, which is like a heavy thing to have a dream about. I just didn't know anything different was I just thought something very beautiful was happening. It was like, maybe I'm crazy, maybe this is beautiful, but he was having these dreams. Another dream that I came to him and told him that I knew how to go heal people now and that I was really glowing with all this light. So I kept going to school the entire time. I was an excellent student, and no one knew I was going through this except for a couple people like my stepdad. Other things that happened were I felt angels around me, like as real people. They felt very loving and very just full of light and peace, really. And they just felt like they were next to me. And then I think honestly they're always around all of us. I just like made this big promise and I got really opened up and I felt them. Sometimes I would feel them step forward. Like one time I was going to sign up to study abroad and I felt these two really tall angels on either shoulder um, just tell me not to do that. And like, I never read anything about angels being tall. But since I've heard other people's stories, a lot of people talk about that, and that was really neat because it just felt like they were maybe 8 or 10 feet tall. um, Other things that happened, I had a spontaneous life review. So a lot of the parts of a near-death experience are in my experience. I just wasn't dead. But honestly, the trauma I had when I was 13, I think in a way it was a spiritual death. It was a really horrible trauma. And part of me, I think, was more aware of the other side because of that, because um, I had just been so traumatized that I basically was a little bit disembodied and able to feel things on the other side, kind of. So I also had this experience where I had hurt my sister's feelings by accident. I really didn't mean to, and I felt all of her feelings when we talked on the phone. I could just feel like all of her sadness. I could feel it in my body, and I felt everything that she was feeling and not saying. And I thought, again, it like took my breath away. And I thought, I didn't even know I was affecting people. I never ever want to do that again. And so being kind really started to make a big difference in my life because I learned how much we all really affect each other. I also saw an alternate timeline of my life, which I never had read or heard about. My experience happened from 2006 to 2008 before there was all this stuff on the internet about any of this. But during the 2 years of my STE, I call it spiritually transformative experience, I had opened my computer to write and I was going to write about something else. And now I know I'm supposed to write and share all about the spiritual experience. But at the time, I didn't realize that. I was, 27 maybe, and I opened my computer. And as soon as I typed one word, I saw and lived my entire life as if I published that book. It was like being in a movie and watching the movie. Like this book would get published to bad reviews. I would feel really depressed and dejected. It's like I even saw the house I was living in and like was in it. And I read the bad review and I just felt this like deep kind of sadness over my life from that experience. Like I never recovered. And I just remember I was still sitting in the coffee shop at the time and I thought, I need to not do that. I'm definitely not gonna publish that book. And I just closed my computer and never did that. Now I'm doing this. I'm talking and sharing about this spiritual experience. Another thing that happened, it kinda goes on and on. I had really horrible nightmares after my trauma. So I'd done a ton of therapy. I had done all kinds of healing. But I was still having these sleep paralysis nightmares. And I was raised in a more skeptical mindset, but I would call these nightmares, I just called them demons. And I wasn't even raised to believe in them. And I know there's so many thoughts. And for me, I've decided it was my wounds from the trauma. But I would go to bed many nights from age 13 to 26 and have these shadowy beings circle me while I would be in sleep paralysis. Wouldn't be able to wake up. I would feel really scared and I would tense up and try to tell them to go away. And finally, during my 2-year experience, I was awakened in the middle of the night and um, this shadowy being was circling me and trying to poke my heart and trying to get into my heart. And because I was having this beautiful experience, I realized that I didn't need to be afraid anymore. And I'd been terrified of these nightmares. And I just was kind of sitting up outside my body and I said, "You can't hurt me. God lives in me and works through me." And I just said that in such a calm, peaceful way, with just totally trusting that God was with me. And then it, went away, and I never had another nightmare again, and that was, like, a huge thing because, like, again, I'd done a lot of healing, but that those had never gone away until this spiritual experience, so to me, it was like a full healing to go through this. Um, I also had like, I would see auras around trees, like, I was seeing and feeling the energy of the world. I remember, a tree was, my our neighbor in Louisiana where I was from, I was back home during break, and the neighbor was burning the tree to try to let it die from the inside, and the next morning, I went outside and was looking out from the porch, and I saw a green light come out of the tree, and then right after that, I heard a huge crack, and the tree fell over and died. And I was like, "Oh, I guess that was the end of the tree's life." I had never seen anything like that. So it was a lot of things like that. Those were it was just a highly I was really spiritually aligned. Some of the other stuff that happened was like on a non like the more kind of wordless things that were happening or less like spiritual, like interesting things were like I felt how loved I was completely. I knew that my prayers could make a difference. I felt that, I was so loved and I didn't have to worry about anything as long as I was listening to my heart and following the divine guidance in my heart, I was okay. Um, I also, like, cleared any other negative emotions that I had had, like, because this was so bright, anything else that I hadn't healed yet really came out. And then my experience ended after about 2 years. So for the whole thing of this experience, I was living a dual life. Like I was going to graduate school, doing great in grad school, had my friends, and then I was having these spiritual things happen. And I really thought internally that if it was ever going to end, I would just go off to heaven. I was like, "Oh, I've devoted my life to God, whatever, I didn't mean to do that, but in my the personality, I didn't mean to do that. I'm learning all this cool stuff, and when I'm done, I'll just leave. That didn't happen, obviously, because the dream or the experience ended with this beautiful dream where I was, in my room talking to this person who was glowing a lot. And in the dream, telling this to this person that like life is hard. I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know what I'm doing. And in the dream, this man is looking at me with all this love. He's glowing with so much light, and he's saying, life is amazing. You need to go have a great life. Go have adventures. Being alive is such a gift. Go live your life and have a great time. Like just saying all this stuff about how great life was. And I was like, as he talked to me, I felt all this love come into my heart. And I felt my heart completely open. And I just thought he was gonna be my boyfriend. I thought this was my future boyfriend coming to me in my dream. And I said, "What's your name? When am I gonna meet you?" I've never felt love like this again. Sorry to my boyfriend. So, no, I do like it, sorry. But he was like, "My name is Jonathan. You'll meet me when you finish swimming." And that was it. "My name is Jonathan. You'll meet me when you finish swimming." And the dream shifted from me talking to him in my room with all this light to me being on a big ship at night, and I was lowered down from the ship into the ocean, and I was just had to start swimming out alone into the ocean. And I woke up the next morning and all the light was gone. So I'd felt all these angels around me. I'd felt all this light all the time. I just felt like I was totally guided. And then after this dream, it all stepped back and I couldn't feel the angels anymore. I couldn't feel the light anymore. I couldn't decide if I just totally lost my mind or if I'd had a really beautiful experience. So I spent some time going from um I finished graduate school in New York. I moved back to Louisiana. I used to cry alone a lot. I always was able to make seem like I was okay, but I would be alone in my house and like just cry and be like, God, why would you leave me here? Like, why would I feel all this love and then it's gone? And, I ended up, like, moving into a cabin on 100 acres of woods and just kind of I did have a job, but I also just kind of was trying to figure out if I could leave the planet or if I like, where the light had gone, I was looking for it. And then after that, I, like, decided I was actually crazy. I had made every bit of that experience up, and I ignored it for as long as I could. But there were some things that made me eventually decide that my experience was real, not just my stepdad, who helped me a lot and gave me a lot of guidance and was having a lot of dreams about what was happening to me. I also kept having the psychic dreams, like, they never stopped happening. And I also was able to reconnect with the angels and all the light, and it just over time, I just realized, okay, this was a real experience. It just for those 2 years, I was so plugged in, and I felt like I just had to listen and follow the guidance, and now the experience ended, and now that I've accepted it, it's like swimming is I have to be an equal partner and do my spiritual practices, do my inner work, and stay connected as much as I can to that beautiful light. Um, and yeah, that's the bulk of the experience. There was a lot I put myself through a lot of stress deciding it was real. I really stressed myself out after this because I came from such a skeptical background, really. Well, I really thought that these experiences were happening to everyone and no one was talking about it. I thought, everyone's probably seeing the light. Everyone's probably doing all this but then I mean, I knew that it was weird to see things like this, but I also thought maybe it happened to everyone. Um, I guess from the beginning, I knew it was out of the ordinary, but, like, the way my stepdad acted around me, and then now that I'm telling my story, I realize that this doesn't happen to everyone. I really hope it will happen to everyone. That's part of why I got really pushed to start sharing about it in 2023. I waited 15 years. It ended in 2008, and I said I was never gonna talk about it because, I had been told by my stepdad that I would be talking about it one day, and I didn't want to. He's, like, told me on spring break when I went home from school, I was sitting in the living room with him, and I was 26, I think, right after my experience started. He had so much spiritual awareness, and he never really talked about it that much, but we were sitting in the living room, and he sat me down next to him, and he said, "I think you're gonna be very popular one day, but you need to be strong. You're gonna make a name for yourself, and you can get through anything with God." He made it sound really terrifying for me to talk about this. I was like, "I don't wanna be strong." Like, I don't know, and now I'm telling this and people are like, there's so many my whole experience was this is a maximum amount of love. I feel completely loved. And I feel like I love everyone too, and we're all beautiful. I didn't know this didn't happen to everyone until I really started talking about it, and now I'm really seeing, this is considered an exceptional experience. It's been 20 years. It started in January 2000. It ended in 2008, so it started about 20 years ago, which seems like so long ago, but it feels like yesterday too. Yeah, I was very confused. So there was a two-sided part of this experience was it felt completely loving. Everything about it felt like I was loved and held and seen in my soul. But my mind was freaking out for most of it. I was like, that's a light. It feels loving, but I'm not supposed to see a light like that, and I'm scared of it. Um, you know, uh, Seeing the light around people was such a beautiful experience, and that wasn't that scary. I just felt like, "Whoa, how did I never notice that everyone's a beautiful angel? Like, how have I lived this many years on the planet and not seen how beautiful we all are?" So, it was just so many, like, mental processes, but the experience in my heart was so, so beautiful. The dreams were so comforting, really. To have a dream and then watch it happen in the real world a few days later started to become something that I felt very comforted by in a way. And when I don't have a dream that comes true for a while, I get kind of like sad. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once it ended, I was like, "Wait, did I just make all that up? Did I just lose my mind or did I not?" Yeah, and so it was so exceptional, and really, I do believe we have the spiritual experiences that are right for us, and this was really just made a lot of sense to me, and I think I didn't even see that much compared to, like, what God, creator really is. There's so much more. But anyway, I did definitely doubt all of it. I actually the time when I denied my experience, I think I spent maybe 8 years in total denial, and I closed my heart as much as I could. It's like I saw the light start to leave my eyes, and I just ignored it as much as I could because I thought I must have just lost it. I must have just gone crazy, and none of that was real, which was, like, kind of a hard part in my stepdad's and my relationship because 'cause he'd been so supportive, but we've reconnected. Like, he's on the other side, but I definitely feel his support. And I wish I would have understood it better, but he seemed to really understand it more than I did. Okay, so I had a boyfriend right after it ended, and he had come from a really religious upbringing, but basically rejected all of it and kind of become an atheist. But I told him my whole story, and he was so sweet about it. He really listened. Um, and he just he kind of maybe thought I was a little nuts, but also was really supportive and listened to the whole story. And I've sent him some of my interviews since I started talking about it. So he was the only person I really told the whole story to right after it ended. But then when nothing changed, like when I had felt all this light and I didn't feel like it was coming back. Now I know we feel it through our hearts and we connect and it's there, but for a while the longer it didn't come back and the longer I didn't understand it, the more I just thought, no. But anyway, that first person I told it to besides my stepdad was him and he was really supportive. Yeah, so before my STE, I was I had been on a healing journey, but the whole time I was an excellent student and an overachiever. So I had like gone to a really good college, and done really well and done like impressive internships. But, um, right, I was always kind of pulled away from that and started like pulled more into healing. So anytime I was trying to overachieve without being in touch with my heart, it was like I had to recenter into healing. So I love my friends. I have some amazing friends. I love learning languages, and traveling. I love where I'm from. I'm from New Orleans. So, all of that is still part of my life. I also love working with children. So I'm a speech pathologist. That's what I was in graduate school for when my experience started. And so I've been working with kids, ever since my experience ended and even sometimes before, but it became really important to me after my experience to work with kids. Yeah, I believe that we are souls inhabiting a physical body, and I believe we are always tuned into love. It's just our minds have told us that we're not because we're in this physical plane. So I do believe, when we get still enough or when we make big promises like I made or pray or get calm and tuned in, that we can feel the love that we come from and that we really always are and that's always there for us. So that's what I really believe about life and spirituality. And I think when death happens, it's kind of like the veil really comes off because I had the littlest bit of the veil lifted, but then you just go back into full knowing of your soul and your origins and who you really are as a beautiful being of love. Well, one of the things that I've been really working with is I really didn't want to be here after it ended. I was like always looking for how to be back in touch with the light. I sometimes when I'm having a really bad day, I'm just like, how much longer till I can go back to all that light? Because I feel like I'm not really going to feel it until I cross to the. I can feel it some, and I do have good days, but sometimes there's a really big escapism that happens because of this, but that's part of why I really resonate with my NDE friends because they all feel that too. Some people are a little better about being okay being here, but it's like once you feel all that love and then it closes, it's like, um, it's different. But it does, I also became a much nicer person. I know how important it is to be kind. So there's a lot of positives. Like, I really do believe our prayers are answered and heard. I really do believe we always have, God, creator, source, our angels, like always with us. And it just became more and more important for me to just be a good person every day and like be kind and loving to myself and to others. It's a lot to actually heal from what I went through, and so I really do feel like I got a level of the deepest kind of healing available, which was like making my soul right again. That you're just totally loved and totally held and seen and cared for in a way that's beyond comprehension. I wish that you would know that, and I wish that you would know that your prayers are heard and they make a big difference. Even if you can't see it right away, I learned that your prayers can be answered and that you are beautiful. All the light I saw coming out of everyone was just so incredible, and, I want you to know how beautiful you are. Well, now that I've reconnected with it, I do spend time every morning reconnecting, so I tune in and I spend time in silence and stillness, and I receive messages, that I post on my Instagram and Facebook and my Substack when I remember to. I do that every day. I try to start my day in a place of peace. And, I do talk to God all day, or angels, I talk to them all day. Um, and I try to be helpful at work. I love the kids I work with. I work with preschool and kindergarten kids, and if one of them's crying, like, the whole world stops because I have to go make sure they're okay. So I feel like I'm able to see people's hearts a lot and just kinda be there for them, especially when they're sad because I had spent a lot of time being sad before this experience. There's just a lot more love and patience for you than I think that many of us know about because of the way we were raised. Um, I think I really felt like there's a lot of love from God. And I know that's such a big word, but that's what I wrote in my journal. And there's just so much love from that for you. And it's not like keeping tabs on how bad you think you are. It's like actually just loving you so much. Um, You're not the worst thing you've ever done, and you're not the worst thing you've ever been through. You really are just love and so loved, and we go through those things, um, I think to help us come back to love in our own ways. And I know that sounds really abstract, but it does feel like so many of us, including me, I can be really hard on myself, but when I think about all the love I felt in my experience, it's like there's nothing holding that to you. Like, you don't have to hold on to all of these horrible things you've been through or that you felt before. Um, you can heal them and really let them go and let yourself be loved. I want them to know to not give up, to there's always something good coming around the corner. Um, I've heard this said by my friend who's in recovery, "Don't give up before the miracle," and I do think, like, some of the worst days, it's like you cannot see the other side, and I've been there, and if you just hang on a little longer, get the support you need, it'll get better, and life will get better for sure. I completely believe that, and I would also reach out for help if you need to call, like, a hotline or if you need to call a friend. Um, when you're really in distress, it's hard to remember to do the things that help you feel better, but try to at least call someone. Try to make sure you can get enough sleep and get enough food and kind of get yourself back in balance because it always gets better. You're not forgotten here forever. I basically sit in the space of light and tune back into the space of my spiritual experience of this light and all this love. And I'll do distance healings or in person healings. A lot of them are distant. And they're I call them sacred soul sessions, and so really the goal is to get you back in alignment with your soul if you're feeling off kilter or off balance. And sometimes that will just look like talking and bringing through messages. Sometimes it will look like sending love or energy to you, um, getting you back in alignment. Um, a lot of it really the basis of it is just seeing the light in you and letting that be coming up. So sometimes I don't feel like I do anything. I'm just seeing you as the light that I see you as from this experience and just letting you live into that And some people have had really transformative experiences from it, which is really cool.